Okay, welcome, folks, to this MiniVersity lecture. How is everybody doing? Welcome as you're joining. Please say hello in the chat box so that I know you are there and where are you joining from. And maybe a little bit about, have you been to a MiniVersity before? I don't know, say hello in the chat box as folks are joining. We're just about at the top of the hour. And I'm going to give a little bit of what's going on in the D. Thomas miniature world. Hi, Mahiri. Good to see you. Mahiri, great to see you. Hello. Hello. Please say hello in the chat box. So before I bring up I have a few slides to go through, and then we're going to bring up our special MiniVersity guest. Hi, Jean. Good to see you in Plymouth, Michigan. My second one. Well, welcome back, Loretta. Hey, Benny. Good to see you. Maureen in St. Canada. We love our Canadian friends. Hello from Dollar. Charlene, how are you? Good to see everybody. All right, I'm going to bring up my little slideshow just to give everybody an update on what's happening in my. Hey, Kathy, good to see you. If you have missed my last MiniVersity, please go ahead. I put the links in the chat box. You can see them there, and you can watch the replay from my MiniVersity with Sue Conlon, all about DIY tips and tricks if you're looking to start a project or if you're already in the middle of a project. Check that out. The link is in the chat box. I just put all the links there. I don't know. Wait, maybe hold on. Let me click go. There they are. Can you guys see those? Make sure you can see them. Oh, good. Wait. Let me just make sure. Hey, Ohio. Hi, Linda. Let me shut this down. What else is happening before we bring up our guests? I have a summertime estate sale happening right now. This is the Simmons Collection. This is a collector out of Arizona who's looking to downsize. She has quite a collection, many art character dolls, which are beautiful, a very eclectic mix of character dolls, 12 scale artisan furniture. There's a fair amount of commercial pieces as well, best pack, quality manufactured pieces is what I like to call them. Many different categories are in this sale. It's starting this Sunday, and it will actually it will be a month-long sale. I'm going to have, there's over 400 lots in this. It's a big sale. So there are like more than 200 lots. So I will be posting throughout the month. So look for that. Again, many different categories from furniture to pottery to copper to, like I said, art dolls, small scale art dolls, which are crazy, beautiful. And then of course, just a whole bunch of other yummy things like pottery and porcelain and things like that. Stay tuned and stand by because in September, we will be having a very special Meet the Miniaturist coming live stream from the UK, where there's a beautiful dollhouse that has just gone on view at by the National Trust at the Huguenot Museum, a park dollhouse in September. So look for that. In September, you'll be on my mailing list already, so you will be getting links for all of that. So check that. So look for that. And with that, I would like to bring up our special guest, Lillian Bass. I'm going to ask her to start the video. She's been making miniatures and dolls for over 20 years now. And she is recently made an IGMA Artisan member. Congratulations on that. And you have a growing internet channel where you showcase your beautiful work, but you also are starting to spread the word about miniatures and educate folks about dollhouse miniatures, miniature dolls, you call them, art character dolls. It gets a little complex, which is why I really wanted to have you here. And I thank you for being here because I think it gets a little complicated. It can be, at least it was for me, to sort of wrap our heads around this dollhouse world, the mini doll world. And it can be sort of polarizing. Some people are pro doll, some people are not. And I want to sort of set the ground for what art dolls are in this MiniVersity to help inspire folks to sort of either, continue to love them or consider them if they haven't thought about them in the past. So, why don't we start and just tell us a little bit about your background? Tell us a little bit about how you got involved in dolls and miniatures, and then we'll get into sort of maybe some theory around what makes a good art doll, how they're made. We're talking a little bit about your process. I'm excited you're here. I want to get right to it. Thank you.
I'm excited too. So you want to know a little bit how I got started?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Well, it's been over 22 years since I started making dolls for dollhouses. And it started with a dollhouse that I bought my daughter, and I wanted to get people for it. And I didn't like what I was finding. So I decided to just start making my own dolls. And then I started with polymer clay. I do have a little bit of an art background where I studied some, figurative art, and I have a historical fashion a little bit in there, and I know how to sew in real life, so all those kind of came into, um, making it easier for me to make these dolls, and then of course once I started making them, I was hooked. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and yeah, so yeah, and then I went from polymer clay to porcelain, and
Mhm.
I've stuck with porcelain ever since.
Yeah. So talk a little bit about what you were not seeing and what inspired you to, and we're going to talk about the different types of the ways that dolls are made. What made you land on porcelain? So talk a little bit about what you seeing, what you were not seeing, and then how you landed on porcelain per se, and then take us through a little bit about what the different sort of art dolls that are kind of out there, at least the bulk of them. We know that there are porcelain dolls. We know that there are polymer dolls. Talk a little bit about that. I know that just gave you a lot.
Okay, let's see if I can keep all that
Yes.
together in my head. Yeah, so I landed on porcelain. Just
Mm,
I love the material. It's just beautiful. I also like to do anything that's difficult for some reason. I like to just master the difficult. And it is kind of a learning curve.
yeah.
And it's just so pretty, and it's permanent and archival. And I love that.
Mm.
So I don't really remember when I made the switch. I just started learning, and I learned from other artists online, and yeah, I just
So
loved it.
were you using other materials at that ultimate you landed on porcelain? Did you dabble in, and what are those other materials?
Basically, I just used polymer clay,
You did. So
and
you were
yeah,
using polymer at one point, but then you were
yeah.
like,
So I was sculpting them, yeah, and then painting them with acrylics. And then once I got into porcelain, I learned how to China paint the dolls, which is, overglaze. It's fired on into the porcelain, and there are so many types of dolls. So you asked, the different types. There's polymer clay dolls.
yeah.
They're the porcelain dolls. There are resin dolls,
Mm.
like poured resin. There are 3D printed dolls,
Ah.
paper mache dolls or paper clay dolls,
Hmm.
cloth dolls. So, I mean,
Yeah. And when we talk about miniature dolls, art dolls, character dolls in the world in which we play, we're
mhm.
talking mostly in scale, correct? So there's mainly in 12 scale, but obviously smaller scales.
Oh
And
yeah.
then where do you think the line is for mid dollhouse miniatures? Does it go as far as 1/6 scale, or talk a little bit about scale?
Well, I've really only worked in 1 inch scale, 1/12 scale. 1/6 is what I would consider play scale, or dare I say Barbie scale? And that is miniatures too. It really is. I've just
Yeah,
never gone up that far, and I've actually never gone down to 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch scale either. But there are some doll makers out there who make amazing, 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch scale dolls. So I've just stayed in the 1 inch scale.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I
Yeah.
think the dollhouse miniature doll world is so much smaller, no pun intended, than the dollhouse world, the doll world outside of dollhouse. It
Oh,
is so vast, and then there's the antique dolls, and there's the play scale, and then there's the fashion dolls, and it's so crazy. I mean, how do you wrap your head around it? But you landed on dollhouse miniature size, 12 scale, 1 inch dolls,
yeah.
ultimately. Yeah.
Well, I will say when I was younger, I was a Barbie fan. I was a strawberry shortcake fan. I wanted a Cabbage Patch doll. So I was always a doll person.
Hmm.
So, but as an adult, I was like, I'm going to do this as a hobby, and then I just so swept up into it. I just love it so much, and
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
So you are a full-time doll artist.
yeah, yeah.
So so that means you work on commissions, but
Mhm.
do you also create for yourself for, I know you do shows. So how do you balance that between the commissions and what you ultimately want to sell to a customer and then maybe what you want to do for yourself?
I know. It is a balance, especially because it's a business
Yeah.
and I'm an artist. So when
Mm,
I tried to just be an artist, it wasn't doing good for the business. So then I had to really start putting on the business hat.
yeah.
And at first, commissions were overwhelming, and now I love it. Like most of my year is filled up with custom orders.
Right.
So I learn a lot from these custom orders from people, what they want. And so most of the year I am doing custom orders.
Hmm.
And then I would say the other part, I'm preparing for a show, usually Chicago. That's about all I can manage right now.
Yeah.
And
Right.
then
Yeah.
occasionally I'll do something I like.
That's right. 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 Aw.
So,
Um,
yeah, I did
so
make a little wedding couple that was my husband and I for our wedding cake.
oh, you
I
did.
wish I had a picture of that,
Yeah.
but, yeah, that was fun. So,
So
yeah.
talk a little bit about the process, your process. Let's talk more about the things that you ultimately want to do, not necessarily commissions, because I'd love to hear where your inspiration comes from, and talk a little bit about what people do with these art dolls. If there are folks out there who don't play in this world, what does one do with these dolls?
Right. Oh, well, most of my customers, they're collectors. So they have a specific scene or a house or an era that they are interested in. And so I will, do my research for that era. My style, and I keep trying to work on this even more, is realism. And I
Ah,
really like realism because I want them to be able to put the doll in their scene and the scene to come to life.
mm,
So that is, telling their story and using the doll to help tell that story.
yeah.
And yeah, what else? Wait, what else did you say? I
Well,
lost it
so
there.
actually, my question, because in some of the communication that we had back and forth, you had mentioned that it was important to sort of bring to life either the scene or these dolls. Talk a little bit about that and what that means.
Well, it's fun because I get to talk to the person, the
Mhm.
customer, and then they give me their story of their house or their room box. Or sometimes I'm making a doll that looks like a loved one. And so then I ask questions, we exchange pictures back and forth so I can kind of get an idea. And really they just want it to embody whatever era, whatever vibe they're trying to get from their dollhouse or a room
Yeah,
box or whatnot. Some
yeah.
people just collect the dolls and they just love the dolls. So,
So, what are some of your cues? You mentioned you see photographs, you talk to the person. What are some of the cues that drive you when you actually go to into your studio to make that doll?
oh, well, I love historical fashion. So I have books that are reference books on tons of eras of historical fashion. I go online, I look at sites, timelines, different things that show the different eras. It's really like recreating that that style, like say Victorian bustle, like trying to make it look like a Victorian bustle.
Yeah.
It's a challenge and I like it. And so I'll look at Pinterest, like I said, my books, I'll watch movies or shows, and usually those inspire me a lot too. So
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Imagine. So we're gonna take a step back because I want to go through and I just want to share a little bit about the process of actually building a miniature doll. Can you
Yeah.
talk a little bit about and I'm gonna show some of the tutorials that you play on your Instagram account. Talk a little bit about the process of actually making these dolls.
Okay, so it is a long process, very long, especially with porcelain, because it starts out with a plaster mold. I personally sculpt my own models now. I sometimes use other molds by other artists. I did that for a long time. That's how I learned. But like this one in particular is by Doreen Sinnott. But I sculpt my own now, as you can see. I make my own molds and they're plaster molds. And
Hmm.
then I use liquid porcelain slip in the plaster molds, which creates a hollow shell,
Hmm.
which I dry and then fire and then paint and then dress. It sounds simple, but
No.
weeks.
And
It takes weeks.
are you making one doll at a time when you're doing your work, or could you be working on more than one at any one time?
Oh, I'm always working on more than one. I have to kind of keep a spreadsheet just
Yeah.
to keep me organized. But yeah, like when I'm like just the other day, I was pouring porcelain and I had like 6 dolls that I'm pouring porcelain for different orders and different things. And and then I'll break up my day too. So I'll be doing a little of this and a little of that. Like I'll be pouring porcelain and then I'll be painting porcelain and then I'll be spending some time dressing and yeah, it's
Yeah.
like yeah.
But that's also makes things interesting because back to the to all of the different skill sets that you need, whether it's sewing and painting and designing and sculpting. I mean, there are a
Yeah.
whole bunch of talents needed to get this done. Is there one thing you like more than any other part of all of that?
Oh my gosh. Well, I love sculpting. I love sculpting. It is so fun and just to see it come out. But I really like the dressing part because, like I said, I used to sew real life clothing. And so it's really neat to use those skills and see it come out. There's
Yeah,
so many different things that you do besides the sculpting and the porcelain work, which is ceramics. And then, the overglazing work, which is, just so many hats that you wear as a doll
yeah,
maker.
yeah.
But probably dressing and sculpting are my favorite parts.
Yeah. And in terms of the dressing, there must be like a hunt and a gathering process. Hunting and gathering for the right material.
Oh,
How does that work?
well, okay. So I admit I have a lot of material. I have a lot of fabric, but I have a lot of little bits of fabric. I have a lot of friends and family who send me fabric, but then, I go places like my favorite store in Portland that I go to and I get silk from. So yeah, a lot of times I will be like, especially if I'm doing a custom order, I'll be sending like dots of different colors of blue that I have this person like wanted a blue outfit. I'm
Hmm.
like, here are all the blues that I have. And then we take a while trying to figure out what fabric. Some people are like, surprise me. But yeah, I have a lot to choose from. So usually my studio is a mess of fabrics flying everywhere, until I get the
Yeah,
right one.
yeah. What's the most difficult part of the process for you, or the most challenging, let's say?
Ooh, the most challenging is sculpting and getting it to be the right size because porcelain shrinks actually. So
Uh-huh.
even though if we're pouring it in this size, it will shrink about 16 to 18%, depending
Oh,
on the
wow.
type of porcelain that you use. So that is a challenge because I got to do all this math, when
Yeah.
I'm sculpting it.
And is
That
it
is
the same
probably
every
hard.
time, or even does that change based on the weather? I mean, I'm making this up, but like, that is that a hard and fast percentage, or can other factors out of your control change that
Uh,
number?
Well, yes and no. Well, not really. Porcelain pretty much shrinks the same because you fired at the same temperature,
Hmm.
and it's always going to shrink about that. Every brand of porcelain differs from each other. So you
Uh-huh.
kind of have to find out from the manufacturer of the porcelain
Hmm.
how
Hmm.
much does it shrink. And then so I just stick with one brand right now. And
Yeah.
then when I'm sculpting, I take that into account along with, human proportions. And that is probably the most challenging part.
So you talked about pose versus static, and those sort of differences in the types of dolls people have and people want. Talk a little bit about that. What does that mean? There's a ball jointed dolls. There are dolls that don't move. Benefits of
Yeah.
one versus the other. Yeah.
It really depends on what you, the collector, wants. I usually make my dolls static where
Mhm.
they don't move. That's because I stiffen the fabric, I drape it so it looks like it has gravity, so you can't really move it at that point. Sometimes they can move a little. But then there are dolls that people, they really want to pose, like turn the head,
Yeah.
um, move the arms. And you mentioned ball jointed dolls, which to me are really fascinating. And I'm going to start learning about those a little bit more. But they're like articulated dolls at the knees and the the wrists and the elbows, and they can be posed in so many different, types
Mm.
of. Yeah, so I mean there's so much out there. It just really depends on what the collector wants.
So
I
yeah.
personally make the static ones, but yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just when I think about what I might want to do is I want us just everything to stay. I'm not looking to play, quote unquote. When I think of ball jointed dolls, I think of moving around stuff, and
Mm,
that's just not how I would want to work. But I understand how people might want to play, quote
yeah.
unquote. So I get
Well,
that.
what's fascinating to me about the ball jointed doll is the whole technical aspect of it. So I want to learn how to do that someday, but I'm not sure how you would make the clothing look so that it looks real
Hmm.
because if you move it, so I haven't figured out all that yet, but
Yeah.
yeah, I do like the dolls are just in one position. Yeah.
Hmm. Um, so let's talk a little bit about your work. Let's show some of your work because I want and I want to talk a little bit about again back to just how wait, hold on. I didn't do that right. Hold on.
Drink
Go.
water.
There we go. So this is some of your work. And again, these are static, right? These are static dolls. This is where people want to just like maybe put a piece in a scene and leave it and not
Yes.
move it around. And
Yes.
so we talk about expressions in the doll world, and I think that's probably one of the things that make your dolls so special is the expressions, and just they do look very lifelike. Talk a little bit
Yeah.
of how you might achieve that.
Well, I am a keen observer of human nature, I have to say. If you catch me staring at you, it's probably because I'm trying to figure out
Yeah. Yeah.
how to sculpt that. So I really, because I want the doll to look real.
Mhm.
And I've gotten better and I hope to keep getting better. There's sometimes the dolls just come out and you're like, oh wow, they have such a serene look, or they just look adorable, like the little girl there. They just look so, yeah, those expressions are really, really important.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially, yeah, when it's a custom order too. Yeah, that one on the green couch there
Yeah.
was made after a painting.
Oh, is that
So
right? Can you talk a little bit about that? Hold on. I'm going to try to stop it there.
it's
One
called
sec.
the Green Sofa. I think that's the name of the painting.
Because not this one. Hold on. It's the next one. Because it is an awesome piece. Hold
Oh
on.
yeah, I love that one. That one's just
My
so
favorite is
beautiful.
the captain. Hold on. I'm going to stop him there. So yeah, talk a little bit about this because she's beautiful.
Yeah, she's one of my favorites. Yeah, she was based off of a painting, and
Oh,
the customer really wanted he just challenged me to go ahead and do it, and I'm like,
yeah.
"Okay." And we talked about kind of how she might be feeling or thinking, and so I really, really worked on it, and I had to work on, of course, her pose and her neck and her collarbones, and, it was just such a challenge, and it turned out so well.
It did. I mean,
Absolutely
did you
loved
know
it.
that's where it was going? Did the customer tell you it was going on that? And did you have that sofa in front of you, or you
Yeah,
just blind? You did. Okay,
he
good.
sent it to me, so
Oh, wow.
covered it in plastic and, just worked with it, and yeah, it was really, really great when they send me the piece that they want the doll to be on. That's
Uh,
wonderful.
so what is the very, very first step that you take? Do you sketch it?
No, it's funny, I know how to draw, but I it's in my head mostly. It's really the sculpting and the tactile sculpting, part of it, and then I usually have, photos for reference of the
Yeah.
face.
Uh-huh.
Like that one in particular, believe it or not, I used Julie Andrews as an inspiration.
Oh,
So I
really?
had pictures of Julie Andrews up and I was trying to get her nose right and her eyes right and everything. So the sculpting is kind of like my drawing it out, my sketching.
And so do you start with the face? I mean, is that
Oh,
Stupid.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
it starts with the face and the head
yeah,
and
and
then everything. Yeah.
they're separate molds too, so when I put them together in the porcelain part of it, I pose it in that porcelain stage before I fire it, so that has to be figured out too at that point.
Can you say that again?
Well, when I pour the porcelain in, it's still kind of wet. They call it leather hard. I will pose the doll, like this one in particular. I posed her to fit on the couch,
Uh-huh.
and then it dried, and then I fired it in the kiln, and that was the pose. It was permanently set like that. So
It's
the sofa and the painting for the
it's
spring.
is it all one piece or it's not all one piece, it's separate pieces.
No, it's separate. It's mostly the head and the torso are usually fixed.
Uh-huh.
And then it's usually the arms from the elbows
Mm,
down, sometimes from the shoulders down.
mhm.
And then the waist usually ends at the waist. And then the feet start again at the knees.
Yeah. Why don't we take a second to see if anybody has any questions so far? I mean, I think this is just fascinating, just how you go about getting this done.
Oh,
How
it's
long
so
did
fun.
this take you to do this one piece, let's say?
Ooh, probably a good 2 months or so because there's drying of porcelain, then there's firing and painting, and then sometimes I will do an outfit 2 or 3 times before I get it just right.
I bet.
So probably about, yeah, couple months, 2 to 3 months.
Wow. That's just incredible. Let's keep going and see if there's any. Are there any other pieces you want to stop and talk about? I mean, they're also beautiful. My favorite is the captain.
Oh,
I just love him. I love him.
actually,
Yeah,
he's
what?
a local
I want to go
customer
back.
of mine.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's a model boat builder.
Oh, he's a real person.
He's a real person. Yeah, well, the captain is actually based after a real person, but the customer is,
Oh,
it's so I actually got to see the boat at a time,
oh my
you
God.
know, and he
Oh,
was
oh, so
like,
he
"I
made the
wanna."
boat. He's the model.
Yes,
Oh, because the boat's
yes.
cool too. I love the
Yeah,
wood
yeah,
of the
it's really
boat, but
cool.
he's awesome. All right,
Yeah.
we do have a question from Mahiri. Is the doll fabric from the waist to the knees? Is the doll fabric from the waist to the knees? I don't know if I understand
Oh,
that question. Is
I
the
think I
doll
know.
fabric from the waist to the knees?
What I think I know what you're asking, if they're like porcelain. The porcelain usually ends at the waist on my dolls,
Oh,
and then I will wrap them with cotton batting,
hmm.
to the knee part. So they're flexible until I set everything at the very end, and then they're no longer flexible. But
Uh-huh.
yeah, yeah. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, I think that makes sense. Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. So the big takeaway is that the porcelain ends. It's not
Yes.
all. And so, what are the legs made of? Are they?
Actually, do you want me to show you?
Yeah.
Okay, here is, can you see this? So there's a body
I'm gonna
and it ends
stop
at the
this.
waist.
Oh yeah, there it is. And
Yeah.
that's going to take me to my questions about kits because
Yeah.
that's reminding me of kits. Okay, so Mahiri's saying yes, that is her question. Jean has another question. What would you recommend to a beginner who wants to get into face sculpting? That's a good question. Like, I mean, maybe talk a little bit about some tools that they might use. Um, you know,
Yes.
eh,
Well, stare at people. That
so
helps.
it's a lot of observation.
Well, in a good anatomy book,
Mm,
get a really good anatomy book. There's anatomy for sculptors out there. I wish I remember the name of the author. They really work on, for faces, facial expression,
mm,
how to sculpt that, the muscles behind that, the muscles behind a smile,
yeah.
etc. And just have some tiny, tiny tools. Soft silicone tools really help with sculpting.
Hmm. Do you have a favorite tool that you use that you can't be without?
Oh, I
Uh,
have a lot. The silicone tools are my favorite, the mini silicone tools. Then I have some really tiny metal tools, almost like dental
oh,
cleaning
I bet.
tools.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah,
Really, really
and
sharp.
even a brush. Very sharp and tiny.
Hmm.
And then my favorite clay, if anyone's wondering, is Sculpey Gray Firm. There's a lot of clays out there. But that's how I sculpt the model.
Can you get that in a Michaels or you have to buy that? Uh,
Or you could get that at a Michael's or
oh,
Amazon or
oh,
yeah.
okay. Um, Loretta wants to know, where do you find fabrics to scale? We talked a little bit about that on that hunting and gathering piece. Where's your
Yeah.
go-to place? Well, you said you have a place nearby that you go.
Oh, there's this fabric store in Portland, and it's kind of like a warehouse. I think the roof even leaks when it rains. So, but you go there and they have silks and just really I look for very thin, tiny fabric, very tiny motifs on the fabric. I even print my own fabric
Oh, wow.
on occasion. Yep,
Okay.
yep,
Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, I would
It's
imagine it's not easy because you're looking for scale. You're looking
yeah,
for, the graphic patterns that are appropriate. So
yes.
that's part of your search. Is that,
Oh
yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and there's a little video I have on YouTube where I talk about finding it. I'm like, look for motifs no bigger than your finger,
Uh-huh.
because really, I mean, it depends on what you're making, but and silks are hard to find these days.
Is that
So
right?
if you can find some, grab them. They're
Yeah.
really great to work with. Yeah, really
Yeah.
good cottons,
Hmm.
really lightweight.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so yeah, I have a lot of fabric.
I bet. Well, because you never know what you're going to be making, and you never and you might just get something just because you like it. You
Yeah,
might make something later on with it, and
yeah,
or you might not find it ever again.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
but
Even
you only
old
have to buy one
clothing.
per yard, right? I mean,
No, like an eighth of a yard or
oh, you could buy
yeah,
an eighth of a yard.
yeah,
They will
yeah,
sell an eighth of a yard.
yeah,
Okay, all right,
yeah.
nice.
Sometimes
What's
it's only a quarter, but they'll do an eighth at the place I go to. So
oh wow,
yeah, I know.
that would be considered a sample, I think, for interior designers. No, anyway, but
Yeah,
that's great. All right, so two
it's
two questions. Do you have your own kiln? We talked a little bit about that. You do have your
I
own
do.
kiln,
I have
two of them.
two kilns. Yep. Big Bertha and Baby Bertha. But yeah, they're just they go up to cone 10. So if any
What does
ceramic
that mean?
people know what I'm talking about, it's a high temperature, so it gets porcelain is fired to what they call cone 6, which is about 2300 degrees
Oh
Fahrenheit.
wow. Oh my.
So yeah, they're great little kilns. And my bigger one can probably hold about 10 miniature dolls in it
Oh wow.
when I fire. So
How long
yeah,
does it take to fire up a doll head?
cool. Well, to get it to that final porcelain state, uh, about 10 hours
10 hours
on
at
average.
2300 degrees?
Yes, yes,
Wow. Wow.
yeah, you gotta
That's
watch it.
a lot. That's not like microwaving.
No,
So that
no,
thing
it
goes,
takes a long time.
you put it on and then go to sleep. How does it work? I mean, you
Oh
can't,
no,
you gotta watch it, right?
you gotta watch it. It's kind of dangerous, I'll start it really early in the morning and then it'll be done by the evening. And then I can't look at any of the pieces until the next day when it's
Because it
cooled
gotta
off.
cool.
Yeah,
Holy
yeah,
cow.
yeah,
I
yeah.
had no idea. And 10 hours. And then
Mhm.
let's say you don't like how it came out. I mean, I'm just saying, how often does that happen? And you're like, you have to do the whole thing over. Not over, but
It
can you
happens.
reuse pieces?
You can. You can even sand pieces down, but if
Okay.
a piece is cracked, I usually toss it.
You
And
toss
that
it.
does happen a lot. Well, not a lot, probably about 30% of the time it'll happen. And
Yeah.
it's usually some weird anomaly like moisture inside the clay still.
Wow.
Or yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Sometimes we call it the kiln gods
Killing
have
gods.
their way.
So you shared what the torso of the piece looks like, and I've
Yeah.
seen those in kits. Can you talk a little bit about that? Is that an option for people if they want to get into doll making? Maybe if they don't want to go as far as you, which is sculpting the piece. Is that an
It
option?
is.
What is that? What is that? Yeah,
Yeah, I do sell kits.
you
I'm
do.
trying to sell more of them. And usually I let my email list know I have them. In Chicago, I had a bunch, but they'll include the head torso.
Oh,
Here, I'm trying to show you some. Let's see, it'll include the hands,
yeah.
and then it'll include the feet. And I usually send them along with blank feet so that they can make their own shoes.
Wow. There you go. So
Yeah,
that's an
yeah,
option if you don't, let's say, have the skills to sculpt. You don't have a
yeah,
kiln that can work 2300 degrees for 10 hours.
yeah,
That is the biggest learning I think coming out of here is just the amount of time it takes Wow, that's amazing. All
Yeah.
right, so I just put links into the chat again, not only
Okay.
to your Instagram, but to your YouTube, your Facebook, but your Etsy shop. So
Yeah.
folks
Yeah.
can actually buy kits online on your Etsy shop, or
Well, right now I don't have any up there.
okay,
Usually they don't make it past the email list. They get snapped up so fast. They
I
take me
bet.
so long to make,
Hmm.
but I do sell patterns and I sell a bunch of wig kits where
Oh, we didn't even talk
it
about
comes with the
wigs.
hair. Yeah, comes with all the hair and a booklet on how to actually make that hairstyle.
I
So
mean,
that's
that's
really
we could
popular.
spend a whole day just talking about like the hair and the styles and working with. I don't. That's a whole nother thing. So you mentioned you have a mailing list. And you what do you do a newsletter? Let folks know where you're going to be and what you're up to,
Oh
and
yeah.
where can they sign up for that on your website?
On my website, the main page of the website has a little form, and I think every page has a form on it, but the main
Okay.
page you'll see it at the bottom. But it's a email list, and I'll send out an email saying this is available, or yeah, I let them know about you in
Yeah. And
this
what's
event.
and what's
So,
the lead time? Say someone does have a commission, just in general. I know you said it takes you 2 months, 2 months, took you 2 months to make that doll, but I mean,
oh
every
yeah,
project is going to be different. But just as far as expectation, what can folks, how backed up are you? I mean, you're one person.
oh yeah, one person who I love doing what I do, but I work a little much. But
Yes, I
I love
bet.
it.
Yeah.
I'm backed up probably till well, probably I know until February of 2025.
February 2025.
Yes, yes,
But
yeah.
actually, did people get started? I mean, does it help just for folks to send you, here's my idea? You might not get it till 2025 or start,
Oh, yeah,
but
yeah.
do you have time to like read what they might be looking for? I'm just saying.
Yeah, I'll take notes,
Yeah.
especially if they get on my list. I ask for a deposit to get on the list. When they get on the list, I start taking notes. They'll
Mm,
send me, emails about what they want, and then,
yeah.
the closer I get to the date that I can. So estimate is about 6 to 8 weeks to
Hmm.
make the doll in total. When I
Right.
get closer to the time I'm able to start on their doll, I will
Hmm.
email them and say, "All right, let's get started.
Yeah.
Remind me again," and
Yep.
yeah,
Locking into materials and looks and
yes, yeah.
all that. Because it's
And
quite a
it's fun.
process. It's quite a
Huh.
process.
It
Wow.
is, it's so satisfying, it really is
I bet. I
just
bet.
fun, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And do you go into some sort of zone when you're doing the sculpting work? You mentioned sculpting is sort of your favorite part or one of
Oh,
your,
yeah, I
it's just a
do.
zone.
What do they call that? The artist brain where you just kind of like you're listening to your mellow music and you're
Yeah. And you're just doing
it's
your thing.
awesome. Yeah.
Well, Lori had a question. What was the name of that store in Portland that you find your
Mill End.
Mill End?
Mill End Fabric Store. If you ever get to Portland or you live here,
I'm
go
gonna
there.
pop that
Yes.
into the chat box. So you mentioned you do one show. We only get to see you one time a year, and that's Chicago.
It is.
Are you planning to be in Chicago in, I guess that's February. No, it's April. April.
April, yeah. Yeah, I just got the letter again from, the show
Yeah.
promoter,
Uh-huh.
organizer and yep,
Yeah. Oh, good.
yep,
All right. So we can
yeah,
see you there. I was going to say what's
yeah.
next for you, but just knowing that you're going to be in Chicago. I mean, it's summer now, but we're gonna fall is 8 weeks away, and you got
I
to get
know.
the show. So,
It
um,
flies.
yeah. Is
Yeah.
so back to what you is there a dream doll that you have in your mind that you have not made yet that you want to get started on?
Dream doll. Hmm. Honestly, I would really like to try a ball jointed doll in 1 inch scale.
Okay. All right. So it's
And
more about
probably
technique.
yes, and
Yeah.
learning how to make that happen and
Yeah.
make it look real. So
Yeah. All
my
right.
favorite era, if I'm gonna make dolls, would be the Edwardian time period, which I
Oh,
love.
beautiful. All right. Lovely. Lots of lots of frill. Yeah.
Puffy sleeves,
Puffy, puffy. That's awesome. Well, this has been awesome. I am inspired. I am
Oh,
completely now I'm aware of so much that I did not know before. And, I mean, I hope you guys out there are inspired. If you don't have dolls in your collections now, I hope you're thinking about bringing them into your world because I think they can really enrich your whole collecting experience. And I have to tell you, I have, I've been handling doll sales now for a few years, and I have an appreciation for them like I've never had before. Just handling them and seeing how much work goes into it is just mind blowing. So I applaud you for
Thank
the
you.
work that you do and the talent you're bringing to the miniatures world and inspiring
Thanks.
us to just bring these lovely pieces into our world. So
Aw,
thank
well,
you
thank
so
you.
much for joining us
Yeah.
today. Thank you guys at home. This has been awesome. I hope everybody has a great rest of your night and day. And thank you again so much for being here. I appreciate it. Take care. Have a great rest of your day and night.
Bye.
Bye.